They said she died instantly. A tragic accident no one saw coming, but what if that wasn't the end? What if, beyond the veil of life and death, a girl and her beloved horse found each other again in a meadow that only the lost can reach? In a place where spirits linger, and love never lets go. This is the story of Lena and the horse who refused to forget her. The sun rose slowly over the sleepy hills of Evergreen Hollow, its golden fingers stretching over the frost-laced rooftops and gently waking the quiet earth. Autumn clung to the trees with the last of its fiery grip-amber, crimson, and gold leaves trembling in the breeze, ready to fall. The wind whispered low and sweet through the meadows, tugging at the tall grasses like a lullaby only the horses could hear. And in the wide pasture, just beyond the last wooden fence of Willow Grove Ranch, a young girl sat bareback on a cinnamon-colored gelding, her arms wrapped around his thick neck, her cheek pressed against his warm fur. Her name was Lena Whitmore, and the horse beneath her canyon had been her best friend since she could walk. The two of them had grown up together. They had weathered storms together. And soon they would face something no one could have imagined. Lena was 17, stubborn as ever, with wind-tangled hair and a heart too big for her chest. She wasn't like the other girls in town. She didn't care for dresses or dances or the latest gossip from school. What she loved, what she lived for, were wide-open fields, leather reins in her hands, and Canyon's heart beat steady beneath her. He was her escape, her sanctuary. Her compass when everything else felt upside down. Her parents didn't understand the bond. Her mother thought it was just a phase, and her father, too busy running the local hardware store, thought horses were an expensive hobby. But Lena didn't care. Not really, because Canyon always understood. He didn't talk back. He didn't judge. He didn't tell her to grow up. He just listened, breath, and ran. That morning, the air had a weight to it, a hush that made birds fall silent and made the sun feel distant even as it shone. Lena didn't notice it at first. She was too busy racing. Through the woods on the edge of the property, ducking beneath low branches, laughing into the wind. Canyon's hooves pounded the earth like thunder. His mane whipped against her cheek. They burst into the clearing near Pine Hollow, the secret meadow they always rode to when the world felt too heavy. The meadow shimmered in the morning dew. Golden light scattered like glass across the tall grass. Lena let Canyon slow to a canter. Then a trot, then still. She dismounted and dropped to her knees in the grass, arms spread wide. "I wish we could stay here forever," she whispered. Canyon walked beside her and gently nudged her shoulder. She smiled and rubbed his muzzle. "I mean it," she said. "Just stay in this moment. No phones, no yelling, no pressure, just us." She looked at him. "Wouldn't that be perfect?" And for a second, it was until the wind shifted, and time unraveled. It happened fast. So fast. They were riding home, retracing the old dirt path that wound along the cliffside above the river, route Lena had taken 1,000 times. But the rain from the night before had loosened the soil. Canyon stepped on a patch of mud. His hoof slipped. The world tilted. And Lena fell. The sound was sharp, like wood splitting, like the sky tearing. Then silence. The paramedics said she died instantly. A broken neck. She hadn't felt a thing, but Canyon, he stood over her for hours. He wouldn't leave her side, even when the rescue team came, even when they tried to coax him away. He refused until her father, red-eyed and shaking, came and whispered in his ear. Only then did Canyon step back. But his eyes never left her. The town mourned. The school held a vigil. Willow Grove Ranch received hundreds of letters, flowers, messages from neighbors and strangers alike, but none of it made sense to Canyon. He waited at the fence line every morning, ears perked, watching the trailhead where Lena would always appear. He didn't understand why she didn't come. And in the place beyond time, neither here nor there, neither breath nor death, Lena was waiting too. She woke to soft light, not from the sun. Not exactly. It was like the air itself glowed. She was lying in tall grass. A meadow, but not the meadow, not Pine Hollow. This place was bigger. Wilder. The sky above was a swirl of lavender and rose gold, with stars blinking even though it seemed to be morning. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors. The trees were tall and ancient, their leaves whispering secrets in a language she almost understood. She sat up. No pain. No cold. Just a strange stillness inside her, like a breath she hadn't finished taking. Hello? Her voice didn't echo. It just settled into the world. She stood, looked around, and then she heard it. The H-O-F-B-S, distant. Familiar. Her heart stopped. Canyon? She turned there, far across the meadow. Beneath the twisting limbs of a tree that shimmered with silver bark, stood a horse. His coat glowed softly in the starlit day. His mane moved, though there was no wane. Lena took a step forward, then another, and the horse turned his head, and she knew. She ran, feet pounding the grass, breath catching, tears already streaking down her cheeks, though she didn't know why. Canyon. He neighed, loud and low, and began to gallop toward her. When they collided, she wrapped her arms around his neck, sobbing, pressing her face into his fur. "You're here," she whispered. "You found me, or maybe—" She had found him. He nuzzled her shoulder, eyes wide and wet, and in that moment, Lena understood. This was no ordinary place. This was a place between worlds. A meadow of memory. Of spirit. Of everything left unfinished. Days passed, or what felt like days. Time was strange here. She and Canyon explored the meadow together, discovering more than just flowers and sunlight. They found a stream that sang like a lullaby, a grove of trees that glowed at night, stone circles where shadows moved like dancers. She wasn't alone. There were other spirits, maybe. Animals, too? But they never approached. They watched from a distance, gentle, patient. Like guides. Or guardians, but something still tugged at Lena's heart. She wasn't ready, not fully. Something was missing, and the meadow knew, because one night, as she sat by the glowing stream, Canyon's head resting in her lap, the stars above flickered and a new path appeared in the grass. Winding. Glowing faintly, calling her. Lena stood, heart racing. Canyon rose beside her. She looked at him. "You see it too?" He bobbed his head. Together they stepped onto the path, and with each step, the world around them shimmered. The grass changed. The air thickened, and far ahead, just at the edge of sight, a door. Floating. Shimmering. Waiting. From the other side she heard her name, a whisper, a plea, a voice she knew too well. "Lena!" Her mother. The path shimmered like moonlight trapped in dew, winding through the meadow in gentle curves and glowing with a faint inner light. It was quiet, so quiet that even Lena's heartbeat felt loud in her ears. Canyon walked beside her, steady and calm, his eyes fixed ahead like he understood the weight of what lay before them. And at the end of the path, hovering a few inches above the meadow floor, stood the door. It wasn't attached to anything, no frame, no wall. Just a solitary wooden door, aged and weathered, with a brass handle and carvings spiraling across its surface like vines. It pulsed faintly, like it breathed. Lena slowed. She could still hear it. Her name, faint, like a prayer carried on wind. "Lena." Her mother's voice, thin, aching, full of a grief Lena had never heard before. She turned to Canyon. His ears flicked. He said nothing, of course. But she could feel it in him, that same unspoken understanding that had always lived between them, that place between thought and instinct. Between question and answer, he nuzzled her shoulder, as if to say, "Go on." So she did. When Lena's fingers brushed the brass handle, the door reacted. A shimmer spread from her fingertips like ripples on water. The carvings along the wood brightened, and the air around it warmed. The handle turned without resistance. And then light, blinding, warm, full, not like sunlight, more like memory. It rushed over her in waves, tugging her forward, and before she could speak, think, or pull back, she stepped through. The world tilted. Colors blended, sound bent. And then she was standing in her bedroom, her real bedroom, the same posters on the walls, the same string lights hung unevenly above her window, her boots still muddy in the corner, her old denim jacket still draped across her chair. Everything was exactly as she had left it, except it wasn't. There was no sound. No wind through the open window. No buzz from her old desk lamp. It felt frozen. Preserved dot like a memory locked in amber. She stepped forward, her boots silent on the hardwood floor. She reached for the doorknob, leading to the hall, but her hand passed through it. She wasn't here dot, not fully. She was a shadow, a visitor dot. The realization hit her like a cold wind dot. She turned and looked back. The door she came through was still there now, tucked against the corner of the room, almost like a trick of the eye. Its glow dimmed, waiting for her to choose dot. She moved down the hall, her footsteps weightless, her form half-light. Photographs hung on the walls, images of her childhood. Her parents and Canyon as a younger horse. She paused in front of one in particular, a shot from the county fair 2 years ago, her arms around Canyon's neck, both of them covered in dust and ribbons. She was laughing in the picture. Her mother had taken it. Her heart clenched. She found them. In the living room, her parents. Her mother sat curled on the couch, her body thin, eyes hollow, the remnants of tears glistening on her cheeks. Her father sat beside her, holding her hand with a quiet desperation that broke Lena's heart. They weren't fighting, not anymore. They were united in loss. The house was dim. A candle flickered beside the photo of Lena they had placed on the mantel. The scent of lilac filled the air. Funeral flowers. Her mother whispered something. Lena leaned in. I wish I could talk to her. Just once. I need to know she's okay. Lena knelt beside the couch, trying to touch her mother's hand. She passed through it. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm here, she whispered. I'm okay. I'm with Canyon. But they couldn't hear her. She wasn't meant to stay. This wasn't her world any more. She returned to the door, her heart heavy. The brass handle was warm to the touch. When she stepped back into the meadow, she collapsed into the grass and cried. Canyon came to her. He didn't ask for explanation. He didn't move until she did. He simply laid down beside her and waited. In the days that followed, Lena came to understand the meadow's rules. The door didn't always appear. It only came when it was needed. When someone on the other side called out with enough longing, enough grief, that the veil between their worlds thinned. And each time it appeared, Lena would step through. Each time. She was a shadow, a whisperer. An echo, but she learned to leave signs. A warm breeze through the curtains, a flicker in the hallway light, the scent of wildflowers that lingered for just a second. Too long, her parents started to notice. Her mother began talking to her more often quietly. Into the stillness, Lena couldn't speak back, but she could listen. And sometimes that was enough. One evening, the door appeared again. But this time, it led not to her home, but to the barn, Willow Grove Ranch. She stood in the loft, watching, as Canyon, the living Canyon, stood alone in his stall, head low, tail still. He hadn't let anyone ride him since the accident, not even the ranch hands. He ate, drank, and walked. But the spark in his eyes was gone. Until now. He lifted his head, looked straight at her. Lena froze. He took a step forward. Another. Stared at the spot where she stood, where she shouldn't have been visible, and he neighed, not a frightened sound. Not angry, just aware. She stepped back, heart pounding. Did he see her? Did he know? The door behind her flickered. It was time to go. Back in the meadow, she sat beside the version of Canyon that had greeted her here. She stroked his mane, her hands trembling. I think he knows, she whispered. I think he felt me. The horse didn't reply, but his silence spoke volumes. Because here, in this place beyond time, feeling was speaking. The next time the door appeared, it didn't lead to her family. Or the barn. It led to the town, the park. Where her best friend Maya sat on a swing, alone. The world had moved on. Students had returned to school. Fall had given way to snow. But Maya hadn't healed. She held Lena's old journal in her lap, fingers tight around it, tears on her cheeks. Lena stood in the shadows of the oak trees, watching, listening. I miss you idiot, Maya said into the wind. You weren't supposed to leave. She flipped open the journal. Inside doodles, notes, drawings of horses, snippets of poems. Lena remembered them all. Then Maya whispered something Lena had never heard her say before. I can't ride anymore. Not without you. I tried, but it's like I lost my legs. Lena wanted to scream. To shout, no, you can't give up. But the world held her tongue. She looked to the sky and whispered into the air, "Please, let me help her." The wind shifted, leaves danced. The swing beside. Maya rocked gently. She looked up. A smile broke across her tear-streaked face. For the first time in weeks, back in the meadow, Lena stood at the edge of the stream with Canyon at her side. They watched. The stars ripple across the surface. "I think I can help them," she said. "Not just watch, not just listen." She looked at him. "I think that's why I'm here." Canyon blinked slowly, and from behind the trees, the door shimmered again. Only this time, it didn't lead to one person. It split. Two doors. One led back to her house. The other led into the sky, a place she wasn't ready for. Not yet. She touched the first and stepped through. Lena had never noticed how many things could move a person without words. The way a picture on the wall hung, slightly crooked after a memory brushed it. The way a breeze could whisper through a room and carry with it a feeling, or how sometimes a horse standing perfectly still could stare at an empty trail, as though waiting for a heartbeat only he could hear. Back in the meadow, the sky had grown brighter, not from the sun, but from something else. A kind of clarity. The stars still shimmered in daylight, the trees still whispered in a language that wasn't quite sound. And Canyon, he remained as constant as breath, his eyes always on her, his hooves always ready to walk beside her. But things were changing. The door appeared more often now. And not just for Lena. Others had begun to arrive. It started with a soft neigh beyond the trees. Lena turned her head and saw a silhouette, slim, elegant, pacing. Another horse. Then a girl. Young, maybe 12, red pigtails, dressed in old jeans and a too big hoodie. She stood beside her horse like someone waking from a dream. Her face was pale with confusion, her eyes wide with loss. Lena walked toward her slowly. "Hey!" The girl flinched, then blinked. "Where am I?" Lena smiled gently. "A meadow, kind of in between." The girl looked around. "I was riding, there was a truck. I think She stopped. Her voice trembled. Am I?" Lena placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. You're not alone." The girl looked up at her. "Where's my mom?" "I don't know. But you'll see her again. Not yet. First, you need to remember what you loved." The girl's horse stepped forward, nudged her hand. She gasped. "Taffy?" Lena stepped back and let the reunion unfold. In the days that followed, more arrived. People and animals, old and young, all carrying with them a look Lena recognized. That ache of being pulled away too soon, of not understanding where they were or why. The meadow welcomed them all. And slowly, Lena became something more than just a visitor. She became a guide. Canyon walked with her as she explored farther. They discovered paths that hadn't existed before, glades where music played with no instruments, streams that glowed beneath moonless skies. There was a circle of standing stones deep in the east corner of the meadow that vibrated when she stood inside them. It was in that circle she heard the voice. Again, not her mother this time, not Maya, but someone else. Lena. It was her father. The door shimmered nearby. She followed it, this time. It opened not to a memory, but to a moment. Her father, sitting at her old desk, hands buried in his face. He hadn't cried the day of the funeral, not when the casket was lowered. Not when friends came and went, but now, alone in her room, with no one left to be strong, for he was breaking. Lena reached for him, instinctively, but her hand passed through his back. "I didn't protect you," he whispered. "I should have fixed the fence, should have told you to stay home. I let you ride that trail." She knelt beside him. "No," she whispered. "You didn't let me. I chose it. I was happy. I was free." But he couldn't hear her, only feel. So she stood, placed her hand on the edge of the desk where he leaned, and focused on all the love she could remember. The laughter, the scraped knees he bandaged, the way he'd pretended not to cry the day Canyon won their first ribbon. And somehow the room warmed. He straightened, looked around, then whispered, "I love you, kiddo." And Lena smiled, back in the meadow. Canyon was waiting beside the stream. She touched his face. "We're making ripples, aren't we?" He blinked. She looked up at the stars. "I think maybe this is why I'm still here." She began to leave more signs. In her house. Her presence stirred warmth. In the barn. Canyon grew brighter, his coat shinier, his hooves lighter on the ground. He began to run again, not because he forgot, but because he remembered. Then the door changed. One night. It didn't shimmer like usual. It burned, bright, gold, fierce. Canyon whinnied as if warning her. Lena approached cautiously. Inside. It didn't show home. It showed fire. Screaming. A crash and a boy maybe 16 crawling from a wrecked car. Blood on his temple. His eyes were wide with terror. Lena's heart raced. This wasn't death. This was near. The door flickered. It was a choice. She could go in. Help. Or stay. Let it pass. She looked at Canyon. And stepped through. The world slammed into her like a flood. Pain. Sirens. Smoke. The boy knelt beside the car, trying to pull someone from the front seat. His sister. She was gone. Lena couldn't speak, but she stood beside him, placing a hand on his back. Somehow, he calmed. His hand stilled. He sat beside her body and whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't see the truck." Lena stood. And the girl beside her opened her eyes. Not in the world, but in the space between. She saw Lena, and she saw the meadow. "Where am I?" Lena smiled softly. "You're not lost. Come with me." She led her back. The door closed, and in the meadow, another soul found peace. After that, the doors came faster. Some showed grief, some showed memory, some showed choice, and Lena began to feel which were which. She helped where she could, and where she couldn't. She listened. Canyon never left her side. Then, one night, the meadow glowed brighter than ever. A new door appeared, but this time, it wasn't floating. It was on the ground. Open. With light pouring out of it. Canyon stood still. Lena approached. Inside was everything. All the moments she had ever loved. Her first ride. Her first laugh. Her mother's lullaby. Her father's awkward dancing. Canyon's first gallop. Maya's terrible jokes. It was home. Not the one behind, but the one ahead. She turned to Canyon. "I think it's time." He took a step forward. Then another, but didn't pass through. She blinked. "You're not coming?" He whinnied softly. And in that sound she understood. He was going back. Back in the barn. The real Canyon lifted his head, took one deep breath, and neighed like thunder. And in that sound, her parents woke, and Maya smiled in her sleep. Lena stood at the threshold. Tears filled her eyes. She kissed Canyon's forehead. "I'll always find you." And then she stepped through the door. Time is different in the meadow. Not slower, not faster, just softer, like it folds over itself in warm layers, like it forgets where it ends and begins. Lena had walked into that timeless place expecting to stay forever. But she hadn't known then what it truly meant to belong to the meadow. She hadn't known it would remember her, even after she stepped through the final door, even after her spirit passed on. In the barn back on Earth, Canyon stood straighter. His coat gleamed with a new light, one that hadn't been there since the day she died. His eyes, always soulful, now carried a quiet glow. Not visible to the world, but something sacred lived in them, a remembrance, a message. That morning as Maya arrived at the ranch with her helmet under one arm and her shoulders tense, Canyon turned to her. He walked up to the gate and stood waiting. She froze. "He hasn't done that in months." The stable hand whispered, stunned. "He always kept to himself since." Maya stepped closer. Their eyes met. And for a moment it was like Lena was standing between them. Laughing. Encouraging. Guiding. Back in the meadow. Lena stood not in the meadow she had once known, but in its memory. It was brighter. Deeper. The colors richer. The air warmer. And yet it felt unmistakably the same. She remembered walking these fields with Canyon. The trees that shimmered in moonlight, the stream that sang lullabies. The meadow had held her when she was lost, and now she would help it hold others. She wasn't alone. Other spirits had gathered here, not wandering, not lost. Guides. The red-haired girl she once comforted now laughed beside a new arrival, teaching her how to whisper to the wind. A boy who had clutched his grief like a sword now walked barefoot among blooming flowers, his anger gone, replaced by light. And Lena, she stood beneath the silver-blossomed tree, a place sacred even here, and she waited. It didn't take long. One evening, the sky opened, a familiar shimmer, a path of stars woven between blades of grass. And from its end Canyon appeared, but not alone. A girl, maybe 8 years old, walked beside him. Her cheeks were wet with tears, her shirt torn, her spirit still trembling from the transition. Lena stepped forward. The child looked up, frightened, and Lena knelt beside her. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe now." Canyon nudged the girl's shoulder gently. She let out a slow breath and smiled. From that moment on, Canyon returned again and again, each time leading someone new, sometimes animals, sometimes people. Sometimes both. He had become something more than a horse. He had become a bridge, a living tether between two worlds. Back in the physical world, strange things began to happen. Canyon, once withdrawn and solemn, began to approach children who visited the ranch. He would nuzzle those who had recently lost someone, stand quietly near those who cried by themselves, and always, he would guide them to the meadow trail. Maya began to notice. And remember, one afternoon, she found a folded piece of paper tucked beneath Canyon's halter. It hadn't been there the night before. She opened it, expecting an old vet bill or some note from a ranch hand. Instead, in the unmistakable handwriting of Lena, were 6 words. "She's here. She's okay. Ride him." Maya's legs gave out. She sank into the hay and wept. But later that day, she did it. For the first time since the accident, she saddled Canyon. He didn't flinch, didn't fight. He stood calm. Waiting. She mounted. It felt like time rolled backward, like Lena's laughter echoed through the trees. She rode down the trail to Pine Hollow, and when she got there, the grass seemed taller, the sky bluer, and the wind warmer. Something shimmered on the far side of the field. A blur of white, a flicker of light, a figure on horseback. Then it vanished. That night, Maya wrote in her journal, "I think she's not just okay, I think she's still with us." In the meadow, Lena stood at the edge of the star stream, watching the horizon glow with stories not yet told. The guides gathered around her. She held Canyon's mane with one hand, a soft smile on her face. "I never thought I'd still matter." "After I was gone," she said. Canyon snorted gently, and Lena laughed. "You're right. That was dumb." But in her heart, she knew she mattered because she stayed connected, because she chose to give light. To leave echoes, not emptiness. To help others cross, not just herself. One day, as she walked along the stream, she found a notebook. It had her name on it, but she hadn't left it there. She opened it. Inside, pages and pages of letters. From Maya, from her parents. From kids at school. From strangers. They had all begun to visit the ranch. To sit in the pasture. To write their grief. To leave their hope. The letters always vanished by morning. No one knew where they went, but Lena did. The meadow remembered and gave them to her. She read each one by starlight and cried, not because she was sad, but because she had never felt so deeply seen back on earth. Canyon slowed with age. His mane faded to silver, his trot softened, but his eyes never lost that light. The barn became a place of stories. Of visitors who didn't know why they came, only that they felt better afterward, of rides that healed hearts, of children who swore they saw a girl in the field. On the anniversary of Lena's passing, her parents returned to the ranch. They stood under the cottonwood tree and read aloud a letter they'd written, then let it drift into the wind. The paper lifted higher and vanished, just like every message before it. In the meadow, Lena felt it land in her hands. She read it and placed it gently beneath the silver tree. Canyon nuzzled her side. And from the sky, new door opened. Not an ending, but another beginning. The stars fell quietly that night, not in burning arcs across the sky, but like soft embers drifting down from a fire too vast to see. The meadow breathed in silence, the grass swaying in rhythms only spirits could feel. The air shimmered with memory, with whispers, with something that felt like peace. Lena stood at the top of the hill above the glowing stream, barefoot in the dew-soft grass, Canyon beside her. The meadow behind them was brighter now. Each knew a rival leaving behind a trace of their light. It had become a constellation on Earth's edge, invisible to most, unforgettable to few. They had guided many home, but now it was Lena's turn. The final door had appeared that morning. Not shimmering. Not burning, but quiet. It stood beneath the silver blossom tree, framed in a halo of morning light, neither asking nor demanding, only inviting. Lena had seen doors before. Hundreds, maybe, but this one, it felt different, not like a passage, but like a return. She sat beside the tree for hours. She watched the river curve into mist, watched the stars dim behind the dawn, watched her own hand translucent and glowing pulse with something that looked like memory and felt like gratitude. I thought I was supposed to leave a long time ago, she whispered. Canyon blinked at her, his breath warm against her side. But I'm glad I stayed. She touched his forehead. I think I was supposed to wait, to help. He exhaled, deep and steady. The wind rustled the tree. The meadow exhaled with them. She visited the door that afternoon, placed her hand on the handle. It was warm. Like sunlight on old wood, not urgent, not pulling, just waiting. Ready. She looked to the sky. The stars above the meadow were beginning to fade, not vanish, just pass on. Their work complete. The meadow was changing. New guides were arriving. The red-haired girl from before now walked confidently beside a boy with sad eyes, his shoulders straightening more each day than Canyon. He remained strong, but she could see it now. His glow wasn't only spirit. It was becoming something else. More earth than ether, more life than memory. Back in the physical world, something had shifted too. Canyon had grown slower, yes, but not tired. He no longer watched the trail with longing. Now he watched it with knowing. Maya came to ride often. So did others, drawn not just to the ranch, but to him. He chose who he let ride. And when he did, those people walked away lighter. Different. As if they had been somewhere no one else could see. One morning, Canyon stood at the edge of the pasture, looking at nothing but feeling everything. Rowan, a girl whose father had recently passed, approached him. He didn't flinch. He turned to her slowly and pressed his nose to her heart. She gasped and burst into tears, and later that night she told Maya it was like someone else was there, like the horse was just part of it. Maya nodded. She didn't question it anymore. None of them did. Back in the meadow, Lena felt the ripple, a message from the world she once knew. She closed her eyes and let it move through her. Not sadness. Not longing. Just completion. She turned to Canyon. He stepped beside her. They walked together through the glowing trees, and when they reached the silver-blossomed hilltop, Lena looked back one final time. The meadow glowed with peace. The stream hummed softly. Dozens of figures waved, some smiling, some crying, all filled with light, and Lena, she smiled too. The door opened without a sound. Inside, light, not blinding, not distant. Warm. Safe. Familiar. Canyon nuzzled her shoulder. She laughed. You're staying, huh? He blinked. She knelt and wrapped her arms around his neck one last time. I'll see you again, she whispered. You'll find me. Like always. She stood. And stepped through. The light swallowed her gently, not like fire, like home, back on earth. Canyon stood beside the fence. The sun had just risen. The barn was quiet. Maya approached slowly, a piece of paper in her hand. I found this, she said aloud. Though no one was around, she held it up, a drawing of a girl and a horse, beneath a sky full of stars. No one knew who had drawn it, but Maya did. She pinned it to the corkboard in the barn. And beneath it, she wrote in soft cursive, ***, Lena and Canyon, they never really left, ***. Years passed, the ranch grew, new riders came, old grief softened, and Canyon, he grew old, but never ordinary. The children said they saw a girl walking the trails beside him. Sometimes. The wind always seemed to follow him. The meadow at Pine Hollow bloomed even in winter. And every so often on clear nights, the stars would fall again. Not many, just enough. To remember the ND.